Alright, we're back at her again today for part 2 in the marsh. We're gonna go back and walk that big trail we found yesterday. That was in the dried up stream bed right off the 2-track. I decided to grow a pair and drive through the mud puddle today successfully, so that cut off a lot of walking, fortunately. So we're coming up to the area right now. It's a real interesting little area. It's really disturbed. I don't know if this is from building the road back here or what. See over here in the sand, there's a lot of tracks in the sand. I don't think this is the exact area, but you can see this big trail coming up into here. Let's go look at that. Got a lot of tracks in here. Yeah, look at this. This is just beat to death. See him coming up through here through the sand. Oh, there must be a bed down here or something. The trail goes down. That was a strange little area right there. Definitely a lot of tracks right here coming in and out of there, but it's a giant pile that looks like it's made by a bulldozer or something. And then directly on the other side of that, there was a whole bunch of brush. I wasn't even going to try to climb down in there, but you could see the deer tracks going down in there. So I'm thinking maybe they were just bedding right on the other side of that big bulldozer. There's actually a couple decent buck tracks right there as well. Okay, I think this up here is the actual dried up stream bed. You can see this is a giant dried up stream bed right here that they're running down. So we're gonna cruise down it too, see what we can find. I got home last night and e-scouted the points we dropped yesterday. And this looked like the other part of where we wanted to be. It's so thick out here that to be able to cruise like this is a real luxury for these deer. You can see the big trail coming through here. Ooh, look at that. That is a giant Michigan leopard frog. What a beautiful creature. My favorite frog to catch growing up. Alright, let's keep rolling. That was interesting. Not even by a pond or anything. Just hanging out in the middle of the trail. I guess it is a dried up stream bed, but there's really no water here. Now this just kind of got thick again. You can still see our trail right here. My guess is this is the highway, and then off to the sides is the bedding. Here's our first buck rubs of the day. You can see this trail's huge. Now, this is interesting because the old road goes this way. But the deer trail is definitely going this way. Looks like we got another trail here and a trail going this way. So this is definitely our first big intersection, so we'll mark this on the map there. Alright, dropped our point. We're going to keep cruising down the main road here. Try to cover some ground back. Basically the same game plan as yesterday. Just another part of the marsh with another point to scout out. This just started opening up big time, and we got a huge pine cut over there. You can still see our big trail coming through here. You can see, if you look in the ferns here, you can see the deer trail going through the ferns. You guys see it right there? You can see it goes off this way too. So like I said earlier, my guess is this is the highway and it goes off into the bedding. Yeah, look at this over here. You got all the willows. So we're definitely going to mark this on our map too, because this is another four-way crossing here. You see you got the willow bedding here, you got the pine bedding behind it, straight across the ferns, and then you go over into these pine beds here. So this might be a good setup for a rut area. Catch a cruiser moving through the beds here. So we're gonna mark this on our map real quick and keep rolling. Alright, we're gonna keep following our trail here in the ferns. If you look, you can see how the ferns are disturbed from the deer coming through here. This trail is right where they should be moving, right along the edge of this marshy area over here. And then we got the pines over here. Probably about a 30-yard flat spot between them, with this big trail moving through them. Not seeing the buck sign we want to see yet. Seen a couple smaller rubs. We can be for sure they're moving through here. We got another big trail here going up into these pines for bedding. Still on our trail here, but this is looking like to be the end of our meadow. We just came from through here. You can see our willow blow out over here with the pine island behind it, and then over here we've got another pine thicket. Our trail's coming up through here, and it's starting to thicken up big time. Look how big this trail coming out of here is. You can see up here how dark it is. It's the middle of the day in August here, and you can see it's almost pitch black in there. Another big trail crossing right here. Looks like the logging road is going to keep going. That was just a bend in it. But you can see how dark this gets over here and over in here. Won't be surprised if they're bedded right off this road here. Now we're looking for rubs along this road and trails. We got one here. Nice decent rub there. Coming up out of here. As we work back, we should be getting closer to the core areas that we're looking for. Like a bed right here, actually. These ferns are about chest high as we move through here. So this is real Michigan jungle in here. Really thankful for this old road here though. This lets us cover some ground quickly without using too much energy. I can see another trail going off this way. Basically my plan is to follow this road back to the end of the peninsula and then scout the edge of the peninsula back up to the truck like we did yesterday. Now a deadfall, we had to go around there. You can see obviously these roads haven't been used forever. I haven't seen a lot of buck sign yet though. I'm sure it's more off to the sides of the road. Not really expecting to find it right on the road. Maybe some on the road and then use that to follow back to the main area. Plus I don't want to go chasing fairy tales. Following every big trail I see. I'll mark them on the map and then e-scout it when I get home where the crossings. It's looking like a huge trail back here into this thick bedding though. If you guys can look here, you can see the giant trail forming going back in there. Just weaves its way. I'm not going to go in there. But that's definitely the end of the road. So that's definitely the end of the road right there. And I would guess these deer that are using this trail are coming down, hitting their bedding areas along the way. And then if they do feel like it, they come all the way to the end here and go off into this. Mark this area on the map, and now I checked where we are. We're gonna have to go off-road a little bit and keep pushing down the edge of this peninsula next to the marsh. See what else we can find. Trail here. tree, and this tree's all rubbed up. It's pretty cool to see. Got a big trail here going that way. Another big trail here. There's a lot of trails coming in here. Looks like this tree's rubbed here. Let's mark this intersection on the map as well. This looks like your typical spoke wheel. Trails coming in from all over right here. And then it had that small tree rubbed with that rubbing ring around it. So I'm guessing this is the area that they're leaving a lot of scent so everybody knows where everybody is. Got some more rubs here. See our big trail coming through here. One thing I notice about this trail, there's a lot of room for a big deer to move through here. A lot of headroom. Now this is interesting. We're coming up to this big vegetation wall right here. You can see this big trail coming through here. This looks like the bedding area here. I'm not going to go off in there. There's the bedding area. This trail goes right between them. Alright, we just came through that little dark area with the bedding areas on both sides. I didn't hear any deer in there, but now we're coming into a little willow area. About 10-foot tall willow whips and tall grass. And as we keep pushing out on this peninsula, it might turn more into the really hot, dry with interspersed little dry islands. And that's what we're looking for as we cruise out here. Let's keep following our trail here and see what we get into. You can see right here where the deer are jumping over the log. Coming in right here. Comes into this giant bed right here. Right underneath this log. If you look right underneath this log, this is bed. Alright, let's mark this bed on the map. This is a big deer. This might be a night bed. It's pretty open, or a winter bed. We're gonna keep pushing through this. This is just a lot of interspersed trees, really tall willows, blueberry bushes. Gotta kind of find the trails, but I'm also trying to go to a certain area as well. Got another rub right here. Pretty big bath here. Alright, we're getting into the real monotonous, thick, small trees everywhere, brush everywhere, trails everywhere. This land can be really hard to decipher if you're not on the main runs. Here's a rub right here. These trails zigzag all around in this brush. And as you can see, I'm standing in it. And I mean, look at this fern. This fern's 5 feet tall. But, so that's good. A little sweet treat for our journey. We're gonna check the map real quick, get oriented, and then keep pushing. Because of the thick, monotonous nature of this land, it can be very difficult to orient yourself using landmarks or trees. You can't really see too far ahead of you. The land is all flat. It's just thick and brushy. There's no human trails out here. So you're gonna have to rely heavily on your GPS, which you may or may not be comfortable with. When I'm out in the woods, I always try to have some landmarks I can orient against. The river, a hill, open area, something like that. And then I can just follow that if need be. But out here, you're going to come into a problem with that because everything looks the same. It's just over and over, repetitious, thick brush, small trees. Alright, we're back on our edge now where I wanted to be. We kind of got sucked in the middle there for a second following trails. But the good news is there's a massive trail here. There's a huge trail running on the outside of this edge, just like we thought there should be. So this is the trail we want to follow. As you can see, this is a perfect example of where them bucks are going to go. They're not going to travel where we just were in the thick of the forest. They're going to travel this seam right here between the thick willows on the left and the big trees on the right. As you can see, we're on a big trail now. As we walk this trail, we're going to try to do the exact same thing we did yesterday. We're going to look for those buck rubs and those big trails going out into this. They like to lay out, they like to lay in this, all this thick, brushy, tall grass. He's got a little nest out there where it's cool and there's water and he's got shade and he's nested out there. This heat drives them out there. Keep following our trail. I came in a little bit. I want to be maybe a little bit more in the trees, but still on that trail, in case he's got a little buck house set up in here. As I walk, I'm scanning all these maple whips and whatnot for that big signpost rub. Trail coming down. I'm just looking for them rubs. That big trail going in. A lot of times those areas will be right where these little maple groves connect up to the willows. That way he doesn't have to go through a long space to get from the safety of the marsh to the safety of his buck house. This is a big bed right here. Really big bed. Just check the map again and we're at the end of our peninsula. So I'm going to cut across and then work back up the other side. Maybe the buck siding's on the other side. We'll see. We'll see what we find. See, this really opens up and there's like these natural travel corridors in here, and one of the challenges of hunting these areas is because it's so thick and monotonous, the deer really wind their way through here, so they got nothing else to do all day. They're just gonna pitter around, go S to S to S, and they could be bedded anywhere out here in this, literally anywhere. There's food everywhere, water everywhere, bedding everywhere, so it makes it a challenge. But focus in on the core areas with the most sign and look for the good setups there. We're going to keep pushing across the peninsula here and start working up that other side. See the trail coming down and the big bed here, tucked in with this huge wall of blueberries. Just saw a big hawk fly up on this limb out there. I don't know if I'll be able to get it on video. If you look closely, you can see that hawk sitting there, hunting in his field, like we'll be hunting in our trees soon. Pretty cool to see. I could sit here and watch them all day, but we gotta keep moving, bud. Alright, as you can see here, we just came out into a giant field. Big blowout. Looks like an old cutting. There's an edge that goes right down this. So we're gonna follow that back to the truck. Super hot again today. Super tough walking through this. I was smart enough to wear bug spray today so the flies aren't as big as problem. Yesterday the main problem was my hands were getting bit to death from the flies. As you can see here, there's another big corridor going in that way. This is the bedding area right here. If you look down, all these blueberries are eaten down compared to these other ones back here. And there's little beds in here. There's a bed back over there. Alright, let's keep pushing through here. It's hot. We're not really finding any sign like we wanted. Can be discouraging, especially when you're just climbing over all this thick stuff and there's no sign. There's some big rubs right there while we're talking about it. There's this bed right there. All right. So we just walked over this big log jam here. I'll show you again. That's where the doe bedding was. Came over the log jam, noticed a bunch of big rubs, then looked down and there's an enormous bed right here. So I'm gonna flip the camera back around so you guys can see how the does have their area and he's got his area right next door. He's guarding them, but he doesn't want to be in with them. Right back in this little area here is where all that doe bedding was I just showed you. I climbed over this huge log jam to the other side, and there's this enormous buck bed right here. If I get down in here, look at these giant rubs right here. These are chest high. It's a big deer doing this. I'm gonna back up so you guys can see the whole bed with the rubs. So if you look right here, that's his giant bed. He stands up and he starts rubbing these two trees right here. Right next door, he turns around, he's got all his does laying right here, right over here. So we're definitely gonna mark this on our map for rutting time because this is a prime area. And you see, if you keep walking, you'll find the sign you want. All right, we marked this on the map. Let's keep rolling. Another big rub here. You can see the trail coming out of here. The trail juts off across this opening. The trail goes over to these pines. I'm sure there's more bedding in there, but I want to follow this edge. You can see these maple houses here. I want to follow this edge here. We got more rubs here. Anywhere you don't see plants, like right here, here's another big bed. If you look around out here, there's plants everywhere. There's ferns everywhere. Every single place a fern could grow, it does. So if you don't see ferns, if all of a sudden the blueberry bushes are mowed down, if it just all of a sudden feels open and easy, most likely that's from the deer. Now look what we just found here, guys. I want to show you the example of a prime core ancient bed. So I'm walking from this way over here. The buck beds are back over here. We got all these pines edge. Back further behind those are bigger pines. If you come over here, right down here is a huge bucket down. I'm going to walk up into it so you guys can see what this is. You see that? Just that giant deer bed right there. It's worn to the dirt right there. If you look right here, you can see the impression of that deer laying down there. I'm not seeing any big buck rubs right here in this bed. There might be one right outside of it here. Let's look. It's not looking like it. So I'm guessing this is a doe bed right here. Just a massive doe bed. But if it's anything like the last one we just found, maybe the buck bed's right over there. We'll mark this on our map and keep rolling. Alright, here's the trail coming out of that massive mossy doe bed. We're looking for our buck bed right next door, and I think we've already found it. You can see a little bit of a rubbing right here. You can see a small bed here. But what I'm looking at is back here. Obviously another big bedding structure right here. Bed, 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 bed. Rubbing tree right here. Maybe he does lay right here. That looks like his bed right there. So if you look here, we got the rubbing tree here. We've got the massive doe bed right here. And then we've got another big buck bed right here. We'll mark this on our map and keep rolling. You can see the rubs out here. We got some buck damage here. Now you guys are starting to get an idea from this footage why it can be difficult to hunt out here. You'll never see those deer in them beds. They're laying down, you'll never see them. A lot of times if they're standing up in a lot of these beds out here, you'll never see them. Third thing is, a lot of times you'll never even see the deer moving around out here. Not like open woods or open country, farmland, where you're gonna really see these deer moving around, because you're not. The maples are back here, they kind of ended. Now we're getting to more of a pine edge along this. So I'm gonna bump out a little bit so I can move more easily and keep looking for more of those maple houses. Got a big trail here, and just look how this trail zigs. It's unbelievable. Got some maples here, some slight buck sign on it, some buck sign back over there. Doesn't look too thick though, so I'm not gonna go over and investigate that. I'm gonna keep following this trail, try to conserve a little energy and stay away from the bedding areas and out of them as much as I can. I see some big rubs over here though. This looks like a big bed here. Another big bed here. And look at this right here. Yeah, he's definitely bedding right here. We got one bed here. We got another big bed here. And then a third bed right here. This tree's all rubbed up. This is all rubbed up. That's all rubbed up. That's all rubbed up. You can lay right on this point here. See this? This is right on a point. If a deer comes from this way, he sees it. If a deer comes from that way, he sees it. Anything coming across, he sees it. We're gonna definitely mark this on the map. As you guys can clearly see, all 3 of these beds are just worn completely to the dirt. And then the main bed, I think, is right here. And you can see it's got 2 kidney beans. It's got one this way, and then he's got another one up over here. So he can adjust how he's laying according to the wind. Alright, we got the triple buck bed marked on the map. We're gonna keep cruising this trail. You can see he's got here. So we're gonna follow this up out of here. Here's this trail out of here. Another big buck bed. Another bed at least down in there. See all the deer scat in it. I'm just walking over all these blueberries, but you can see this is trails carved out in these. But sometimes there isn't, so you just gotta carve out through. You can see we lost our maple whips and our buck houses. It got thick in here. Get up on this log. There you go. Oh, we got some predator scat on the log. There's like another big bed right here. Right under this oak. Thing about trying to get out here when you're hunting is this ground is so thick and so many sticks and brush, and really the easiest paths to travel are the deer paths. There are no human paths. Looks like another giant bed right there. So if you're trying to sneak out to your stand, it can be very difficult. Make sure you pick the right day. Everything's in your favor, because that's what that deer is going to do. As you can see here, now we're on a trail. A little bit more easy to walk. Looking for buck sign. We got a little rub back here on these maples. When you're cruising along, as soon as you start seeing the maples, start looking for rubs. Like a small buck bed here, maybe. What we're really after. Here we go. Another bed right here. Another bed right here. As you can see, these beds just come out of nowhere. They're not even under trees. I'm guessing they're bedding here at night, maybe early in the morning. Whenever they're bedding here, they're definitely spending some time in those beds. We got a big trail coming through here. Finally getting to the end of our blowout here. We got a big trail. You could see as we walk through the edge, this edge right here, through that blowout, we found all those beds and that good buck sign right on that edge. I would guess if we walked up the other edge of this, we'd probably find similar sign. We'll take all these points home and e-scout it, see how it connects in with what we scouted yesterday. And just look at this, as a massive bed. You can park a car in this. Look at this bed, you guys. You could park a car in that. You can see all the deer tracks down here in it. You can see their trail coming into it this way, and their trail coming out of it this way. So we're gonna mark this bed on the map. You can see the track right there in it. Just in case anybody doubted that this massive thing is a deer bed. It is. It's about the size of a truck. Well, as far as it goes for finding a bed, this is pretty exciting. This bed really is about as large as a full-size truck, worn to the dirt. You can see the heavy trails coming in, and you can see the deer tracks actually down in here. So, pretty exciting to see. Good find. We marked it on the map. We're gonna keep rolling. This is another bedding area right behind it. And then now we're into the forest a little bit. So it'll be interesting to see how these points plot out once we get home. Back on our big trail coming along here. And then as you can see, it's a lot thicker in here than it was out there. It was very hot and sunny. We got big trails coming in here from all directions. And then the main trail we're on now. You can definitely see some rubs here. Some more rubbing over there. You see the trail going over into here, into this little buck house. We're trying to stay to this edge over here. The problem with following every deer trail is, yes, it can lead you to the hot sign if you're on the biggest, majorest trail. But if you're not, if you're trying to break down an area and work off the geography, if you keep following every trail along, you're never going to get anywhere. So follow them where it suits you, and then break off. Go where you got to go to get to where you need to be to break down the land for yourself. Got more rubbing in here. This looks like an area they might hang out in between that blowout and this blowout ahead of us. It's nice and cool in here. There's a lot of rubs in here. A lot of rubs in here. This looks like a little staging area they might hang out in and feel secure before they go out for the night. More rubs up here. There's rubbing everywhere in here. Some beds right here. Big rub right here. Still working on this edge. The road's up here in this clearing. Alright, we had to bushwhack a little bit. We're in a dried out stream bed again. And we're coming up to the truck. You can see the truck's right up here. So, thanks a lot for watching, guys. Marshland Bucks Part 2. Found some more promising sign. Who knows, there's so much scouting out here to do, we might have Part 3. Maybe up to Part 10, who knows. But we'll keep going, keep scouting, keep reading the signs, keep having fun. But most importantly, keep buck hunting.